Welcome to Between the Now and the Next podcast. I'm your host, Heather Justice. Today, I am joined by someone that has been on all of our television screens, Ben Higgins. You might know Ben from the ABC shows The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. But Ben is much more than a contestant on a reality TV show. He is the founder of the for-purpose company, Generous Coffee Company, dad to Winnie and Waylon, husband to Jessica, the author of Alone in Plain Sight, podcast host of Almost Famous and his newest project, Can You Hear Me podcast. He also participates in philanthropic work and serves on the board of directors with Project Hope. I'd say he has a pretty full plate. I'm so excited that he chose to spend some time here with me today. So if you've only ever known Ben from reality TV, this conversation is going to give you a deeper look into his life and who he is outside of all the cameras in the public eye. I hope you enjoy listening to this conversation between Ben and I as much as I enjoyed recording it. Ben, hi, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Hey, thanks for doing this. It's nice to sit down and chat for a little bit.
So I have to start out with something funny because I'm all about being real and vulnerable. So when I saw somebody had posted a podcast that you were on, I just commented and tagged you and was like, hey, I'd love to have you on the podcast. I've had your buddy Bob on. And I was like, shoot me a DM with your email and we'll connect. So you do. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. And then I see a message that I sent probably in like 2018 to you right above that. And I was basically sliding into your DMs.
Hey,
so
it's I think we are in the time period where sliding into DMs was one of the most effective ways to meet people. It's how I met my wife. I slid into her DMs. So there's no shame in it. Shoot your shot.
No, that's right. And you guys are so happy, and you have your baby girl Winnie and your first baby Waylon, your dog.
He's my dude. He's my work buddy. He's my daytime buddy.
Oh, yeah.
Having a daughter is incredible in every way. But I go to bed every night and I tell him he's my son who I'm well pleased because I never want him to doubt that I love him.
Aw, how does Winnie like the dog? Do they get along fine?
Oh, Winnie is in a weird stage. So she's 15 months. She loves her brother. She wakes up every morning and the first thing she asks for is Baba, which is brother. And she yells Baba all day, but she's in this weird stage and I don't know why. And my wife and I are trying to figure out what to do with it. But she just yells at him, but then she wants to love on him. So she yells no at him all the time. It confuses him like crazy. So she loves him and he tries to love her. But for whatever reason, when he comes around, she like becomes the boss or wants to be the boss for no good reason. And it's really confusing. So we're in that stage where we're trying to figure out how to navigate him getting yelled at all the time and not knowing why.
That's funny.
Yeah.
But hey, at least they get along, they like each other. So that's good because sometimes you never know with the baby.
I'm sure to the outside world, they're like, this is ridiculous. But to me, it matters a lot. It's one of my most like recent memories of a very passionate, earnest prayer. I prayed for 9 months. So as soon as Jess told me that she was pregnant, I started praying every night, like, Lord, I'm not here to ask for much. I don't know if that's fair, but please help my dog and daughter get along. They don't even need to be best friends. They just need to coexist even.
Right.
Because I was so scared that bringing the greatest thing into this world would also mean me having to let go of something that I love so much because he is a rescue. He has his tendencies. He's not always the sweetest dog to the outside world. He's great to us, but that's because we've created a space where he feels safe and comfortable.
Yeah.
And when we brought her home from the hospital, he licked her and I just bawled. Like I wept.
Aww.
My wife said she's never seen me cry that much. And I had just like, it was just like this weight was lifted. I was so anxious. So yeah, it was a good gift from the Lord above.
Yes, absolutely. Wasn't Elise, when she moved from wherever she moved from to Colorado, didn't she pick up a dog?
Oh, Elise Delboom. Yeah, she picked up a dog. It's a great memory.
Was this one of her dog's babies?
Yeah, so it's a crazy background story.
Okay.
So Elise was moving to Denver to work for the restaurant group that I'm a part of. She was moving in with a friend of ours who was on the show, Blake Hortzman. And she was going to be like, he has like a guest house. And she was driving from Arizona, found this dog on the side of the road, picked it up, put it in her car. Dog was like 2 broken legs, super sick, had been left in the desert. This dog like attaches to Elise like right away, kind of just like, you've saved me. And Elise then 2 weeks later comes to my wedding, and she comes back from the wedding and the dog is in labor.
Oh my
She
gosh.
kind of thought maybe the dog was pregnant, but hadn't had time to go get it checked and was just trying to get it back to
Yeah.
health. And so Gracie ends up having, I think, 9 puppies, and Waylon was one of these puppies.
Oh
And so
my
we brought him
goodness.
home. So the poor dude, I mean, his mom has been through it, but he obviously was in the womb at the time going through
Yeah.
it. And yeah, it's a wild, just like full circle moment now where he's in our home, and she still
Yeah.
lives in Denver with Gracie, and it's actually a wonderful story. But I mean, I don't know. We got him tested, that DNA test, and he has 13 different kinds of things in him, and one of the categories was wild. So I don't know what
Oh,
she had been
wow.
through, but he's got
Oh,
everything inside of him.
wow. Wow. Dogs are so resilient.
Yeah, they're good. He's the
They're so
best. He's
resilient.
my dude.
Wow. I love that story. I want to talk about your book because you've just done a re
Hmm.
release because you originally released it in 2020 and then COVID and your book tour was canceled and all of that. And so you did a re release and now it's an expanded
Hmm.
version, right?
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you actually did a re release because I do feel like this is a topic that is very needed for discussion right now in today's culture with just loneliness and how people can feel so isolated and feel so alone even when they're surrounded by
Hmm.
a lot of people. So what was one of the parts that you felt was the most difficult to write about?
I think it's a lot of reliving moments that not caused the feeling of loneliness, that but perpetuated it. Writing the book was really, in a lot of ways, I said in the book too, like going through intensive therapy, because I recognized kind of the narrative that I was perpetuating in my life and proving to myself. I felt lonely, I felt like the outsider, and so in most moments I would find a way to validate those feelings and create the narrative internally that, yes, I am that way. And so as you write this
Yeah.
stuff on paper, I realized what I was doing. I realized that maybe I wasn't so much of the outsider to everybody else, but to me, I was finding a way to validate those feelings. That was really hard. It's kind of the moment that you realize that some of my problems were on my own, and it wasn't from the excuses I was making from the outside world. I also, was reliving moments where I hurt people deeply,
Yeah.
and I know I did. And I, at the time, just still don't think I was intentionally hurting people, but I think my actions along the way were only going to work towards a place of hurting people. And so it wasn't
Yeah.
like I was in the back of my mind going, I'm gonna wake up today and try to make this person cry. But it was that I was as a human, as my character wasn't developed, and as I wasn't taking ownership for my own actions, and I wasn't standing up in the face of evil or of problems. I was kind of accepting it all. I was going to hurt people along the way. And that's hard. That's hard to remember. I had
Yeah.
done, a lot of work to try to move forward past those things and try to pick pick my life back up and try to be a better man to my wife and now my daughter. And so reliving those is really hard. I've always
Yeah.
said I think everybody should write a book. This book was
Mhm.
never meant to be a New York Times bestseller. It was never meant to be the thing that I retired on. The book was always meant for me to get my thoughts on paper. I've always loved to write. I took years of my life away from writing. When I was a kid, I would write a lot of poetry. It wasn't very good, but I'd write it. I think to get my feelings out there. I'm an only child, so I did some weird stuff. And so this was a good moment to sit back down and type again, and to think through things again, and try to communicate again. And I really did it because I felt like the older I got, the more I realized that the emotions and the feelings and the insecurities that I was experiencing were common. And I was
Mhm.
hoping that, and I still hope that if one person reads it and feels less alone and takes one more step forward and maybe looks for something divine, looks for a purpose in a meeting, and I believe God shows
Yeah.
up in those moments, that it would all be worth it. And so
Yeah.
that was my passion for it. That was my mission on it, and really proud of it. And then the re-release became kind of a love letter to my daughter. I don't know when, but at some point she's going to read that book and she's going to understand her dad better. And
Hmm.
I'm hoping that's the moment where maybe that like superhero idea of her dad falls apart, but she realizes her dad's human, is trying his
Yeah.
best, loves her, and that her struggles and her journey along the way is, is I can be there for them and maybe relate a little bit with them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good about just being able to have the self awareness where you can go back and look at things like you were saying. You didn't wake up and say, oh, I want to go make this person cry or whatever. You realized, hey, I did some things. I hurt some people along the way and I'm taking accountability for that. And I'm not excusing my actions, but I did these things and moving forward from that and having those realizations. I think a lot of people struggle with that and they don't ever have these moments of self-awareness like that. So that's a very vulnerable thing to do.
Yeah, and a healthy thing I think to do. I think
Yes.
it's made me a person who's not afraid to admit I'm not trying to protect this perfect image. However, I don't want to continue to live in sin or live in pain or live in this destructive path. I want to try to become a better man.
Yeah.
It still doesn't always work out perfectly, but
Yeah.
the lessons along the way, even as I've, gone in the marriage, the lessons along the way have helped me kind of check myself at times and recognize tendencies and recognize rhythms and behaviors so that as my wife lives close to me, she's not the one taking the brunt of my own issues.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like that quote, don't bleed on people that didn't cut you.
Yeah. Yeah, or don't make my problem somebody else's is also what my grandfather used to tell
Yeah.
me. That is
Yeah.
true to a level. I think it's become an issue at times in my marriage is my wife wants to hold on to some of my problems. She wants to take some of them on with me. And I grew up with this saying spoken over me of don't make your problem somebody else's. And so it's hard for me sometimes to know when and
Yeah.
how to like lay these issues out to her.
Yeah.
So I'm now in that season where okay, maybe I'm not as destructive
Hmm.
and causing as much pain, but now I need to figure out how to help like bring a partner into some of this, which is
Yeah.
still something I'm figuring out.
Yeah. That's interesting too, because you think about how we do want to be there and help carry the burdens for your partner. But yeah, what's the healthy way to do that? Like, what's the healthy balance and figuring that out?
Yeah, it's a question.
Yeah.
It's a question I'm asking myself often right now because my wife is so caring and she's so loving and she's so pure. So the one thing that when we entered into marriage together, my wife like hasn't really caused anybody else pain. I've tried to find ways that she has. She really hasn't. She didn't really have a
Mm.
relationship before me. She dated, but it was a lot of first dates. And so she comes into our marriage with this like pure spirit, this desire to follow the
Hmm.
Lord, this desire to grow together with her husband. And I'm sitting here going like, honey, I'm not necessarily proud of it, but my life doesn't look the way yours did. And so some of these things like you can't relate with, and it would be shocking to you that I dated
Yeah.
30 people on national television when you never dated one person in your whole life. Like that's a weird thing to
Right.
try to bridge. It's
Yeah.
also the fun in marriage is trying to figure out how to do it and do it well
Hmm.
and grow together now. So I enjoy it and I think she enjoys it, but it has caused moments of like, I don't know if I should say this
Yeah.
because it would be shocking.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. The title of your book, Alone in Plain Sight, it does feel incredibly relatable in today's culture that we're living in. And so, what do you think it is that so many people feel so unseen right now?
Oh, I wonder if this has just been kind of part of human story.
Hmm.
As you read through scripture, there's moments where we have great leaders who are stepping up and stepping through and speaking to the crowds, and but we're also getting the laments and the cries and the pain and the confusions. I think today's world it's a little more apparent because it is so much easier to compare. We see our friends hanging out, and that hurts us when we're not invited, maybe, or we
Hmm.
see our friends going on vacation or having kids and getting married, and maybe we're sitting at home and we desire those things, but they haven't come to us yet, and we don't know why, and we don't know what we're not seeing. And I think there is a level too where there's a protective mentality today where we we don't communicate our own pains and our own feelings, because from the outside world to the social media world or to the way that we see our friends, it looks like they're not struggling with it. The coolest things that I think are happening today are all those groups that are popping up that are gathering just to chat, just to open up with each other. Because I think in past generations, it was the only way we could entertain ourselves is we stopped down to the local bar or local drugstore or grocery store, or we walked town and we said hi to our friends and we heard what was going on and we knew it was up in their life. But nowadays it's harder. I think we've just created a distance. I don't think we're unable to overcome it. I actually think there's a cry for the connection and for the coming together again. And I think it's happening, but we're still in this moment of adjusting. And I think that might be my thesis, if I had one, was in our lifetimes, we've had so much massive adjustment to even, the big old box television to a flat screen that can go in every room, where, we used to have to sit all together and watch TV. Now we can have them in our bedrooms. Now we have them on iPads, to the creation of the internet, and high speed internet to where it's at a click of a button, to social media, to now AI. Like, there's been so many huge life adjustments that I think we're trying to catch up as humans,
Hmm.
because I would argue we weren't really created to adjust so quickly, so like, and at such a high level in our own lives. And so I think a lot of us are still feeling like we're in chaos because we don't understand how to relate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you talk about feeling lonely, which we touched on this a little about feeling lonely even when you're surrounded by all of these people. And what do you think is the biggest misconception that people have about loneliness?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I always reference Justin Bieber here. He wrote a song called Lonely, and the music video is him sitting in an auditorium, or like a big auditorium, uh, alone in a chair. And the whole song's kind of about his journey of, being a young pop star to growing up in that fame and being surrounded by millions of people and an entourage, but yet never having anybody really get to know him. I think
Hmm.
that's one of the misconceptions, is that if we are famous, or if you are known, or if you are important, then you shouldn't feel lonely because you've been accepted. I think there's a lot of misconceptions, that because along the way, there's probably been a lot of pain you've caused others. There's probably been some manipulation that you've done to get to that place. You've also been promoted and pushed up by people who have probably quickly left you if your fame is not continuing and your flame has burned out, which makes you feel very lonely and probably makes you question every relationship that's a part of your life. So I think that's one. The other one, the other misconception is, if you're feeling lonely, you're the only one feeling it. And statistics would tell you that most of us, 70% of us today, have a deep seated feeling of loneliness at times in our life. So, in fact, your feeling of loneliness might actually connect you to others, and actually be the thing that's the most relatable for you, at least in this time in human history. And the final is that there's no path out. I think a misconception about loneliness is like, this
Mm,
is going to be the feeling I feel forever. And sometimes it lasts years,
yeah.
sometimes it lasts months, weeks, days. Sometimes you just wake up feeling off. But there are tools in place. There are things that you can do. There's truth to this world. There's truth to the people around you that will help you move forward through that loneliness. And so I think if we feel that way, sometimes, I just said it on stage. I spoke at an event last month, and I don't know why, kind of as I was doing my prep and my prayer time the night before, I was like, I'm kind of tired of living where I have to stand on stage and be like, hi, I'm Ben. I'm a lonely person, because I'm not as much anymore. I used to be,
Right.
but I'm not. I've moved through that. And there's still days and moments and seasons, but for the most part, that's not what defines me internally anymore. And I don't want it to. And that's kind of the
Yeah.
stake I stuck in the ground and said, I'm done owning this definition of myself because I'm not this way and I'm okay with that. Like that's
Hmm.
good to move past it. And so I think
Yeah.
sometimes we define ourselves by, hey, yeah, I'm just that type of person, but we have this desire to not be, but yet we don't know how to kind of rip away the definition or the identity that we've placed on ourselves, and move forward. That's kind of scary. It's weird. It's maybe the one thing that we've known. I remember when I was working through this in my mid 20s, I was like, it's loneliness is maybe the emotion I'm most familiar with. It's most comfortable with. I don't know if I want to give it up. And I'm sure glad I did.
Yeah, for sure. That brings up two things for me. Are you familiar with who Theo Vaughn is?
Yes.
So he kind of recently touched on
Mhm.
this and talked on one of his podcasts. He got real vulnerable and said, I don't know what my life would look like if I gave up all these worldly things.
Hmm.
I don't know. This has been my identity for as long as I've known. And what would my life look like without it? I'm not sure. And that's scary to not know.
Yeah. I mean, I always hesitate to get too faith based, but I don't know how to filter a lot of this stuff without.
You can do it here. We're all about
Well, I
that.
do it
So go
everywhere,
ahead.
but what I don't want to do is, I think in recent history, the church has oversimplified some of these topics and always use Jesus as a default. And I think that misses the beauty of actually what Jesus was saying in a lot of his words, the depth of what God was calling us to, the depth and the complexities of all of it. And I think when the church just uses, hey, Jesus is your answer, it's like, okay, yes, but what does that mean? What does that look like? What does the human experience to connect with God or to find myself through God look like in that whole thing? And so I think in Theo's on this path, and I think a lot of us are, where he's saying, like, what does it look like to give up this identity that I've had? And I do think it
Hmm.
does go back to Jesus's words of like, we have to have our identity in Jesus. And so what does that look like?
Yes.
We have our identity that we aren't the greatest thing out there, that we're not the biggest thing out
Hmm.
there, that the things of this world can be used for great and they can be fun and they can be experiences and they can be joy filled and they can be comfortable and they can bring about hospitality and gathering. There's going to be so much good thing about having a big house with a chef and all those things. There's so much good that can come from that. However, we have to realize how meaningless it actually is at the same time, how it fails in comparison to the identity that we aren't the greatest things out there, that we're loved by a God and a creator who will sacrifice everything to bring us closer to them. And and when we kind of live in that reality and realize that the external parts, even though can be good and sometimes stressful and take up some of our time, exist, but they're not the most important things that exist, then I think it gets a lot easier to walk through this like path of, okay, if I lose my job, what is left standing? What is still there? What is still, and hopefully Theo's still Theo. I think I'm still Ben. We still keep hopefully our close friendships that mean something to us, our close relationships. We still keep our connection in our prayer life and our relationship with God. And there's that like really nothing changes outside of maybe the comforts that we've created in this world. My wife and I have a saying through work or on our own dime, we've been able to stay in some fantastic places.
Mhm.
And we always laugh when we leave because sometimes we don't stay in fantastic places. Usually, if it's on our dime, we're looking for the nice, like budget hotel if we're just kind of traveling around. And we said, hey, our experience at a hotel that's a chain, a franchise that everybody stays at alongside of the highway and the nicest hotels in the world aren't that different. Like, as long
Yeah.
as the sheets are clean and there's some type of heating and air conditioning inside the room, like they're very similar in a lot of ways. It's not like we leave these
Yeah.
hotels with a life-changing moment. And so I think that's kind of how life works is the more wealthy you get and the more experiences you have, the more you realize that sometimes sitting in the grass in the park is just as good as sitting on a beach at a Four Seasons.
Yeah. That's so true. That's so true. And I love that you brought up about the church and their idea of things and just like kind of putting God as a band-aid on stuff
Yeah,
sometimes. And cuz I have that down here in my notes to talk about the church puts marriage on such a pedestal.
sure.
And I feel like, and you mentioned this, like when you think of somebody that's married, you're like, "Oh, yay, I'm so happy. That's so great for you." And then you tell somebody you're single and they're like, "Oh, like they feel sorry for you. Like,
Yeah.
oh, that's pitiful. Oh, that's so sad." Because I'm living this. I'm 38. I'll be 39 this year. I'm single, never been married. I don't have kids. I have two little dogs. Living the life. I'm living my single life. But the dating world, you talk to every single person, and I'm sure every person is going to be like, it sucks. It is just horrid right now. And why? I don't know, but I feel like that's a group that isn't really served well in the
Mm,
church. You age out of like a young adult group at 29.
sure.
Well, I'm not married and I don't have kids. So then like what happens when I'm 30? Where's the group for me? And then now I'm going into my 40s
Hmm.
and I'm not married yet. So like what now? Like where do I fit? Sometimes it does feel like in the church setting, people are like, "Oh, it's not that hard and it's not that difficult to date." And a Christian influencer put something out on social media. She's been married a long, 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 long time, and she was walking through a cereal aisle talking about it's not that hard to date. I don't know why everybody says it's so hard to date. Just go out and do the things you love and you'll meet somebody, and yay, good for you. Just go find somebody who loves Jesus, get married and have babies. I was like, well, that's fun. So I made a comment and I prefaced it with, I'm saying this nicely. This doesn't have a mean tone behind it. It can be hard to tell through
Yeah,
verbal.
sure.
I'm just typing it. So I just want you to know I'm saying this with love and care, but ma'am, you've been married for a long, 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 long time.
Yeah.
And from what it looks like and what you've shared, you're happily married. And so I just want you to know I'm very involved in my community. I sit on the board for a nonprofit Christian ministry. I do the things that I love. I am out in the community and involved in my church and all of that. But I ended up meeting the guy who was the literal definition of a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Mm,
Yeah. Like he retired Army chaplain. He was a pastor for 7 years and he went to seminary and went out there and found information about me, listened to all my podcasts, read my book that I wrote, my 90-day devotional, used all the information as intel and used it against me
hmm.
and made this relationship look like this is the thing I've always wanted. And then it wasn't. And I found out there was a whole other story behind everything. It's not as easy as you're saying it is. And maybe this isn't a great video to post. So I post this and like an hour and a half later, I pick up my phone and I see like 5+ people like your comment, 10+ people, 20+ people. And so I click on it to go see what's happening in the comments, and the video's gone.
Hmm.
She had deleted it, and then she made another post later in the day and was like, "So I deleted an Instagram reel earlier. I have a lot of people that said, maybe you're not the best person to give advice on this." And respectfully, they're probably right.
Hmm.
I think people just come off the cuff sometimes, but you're not in it. And so you don't know it. You don't really know what it's like right now.
I think it's a question we have to ask ourselves, especially in today's age.
Hmm.
Is the church an oasis in the desert? Meaning, is it the safe place or is it the desert in the oasis? So, does the world around us feel comfortable and feel freeing? And we go into the church to kind of get beat up a little bit, to offer our repentance, to walk out of there being like, okay, that was a workout. I'm tired after that
Yeah.
service. We also have to look at the church outside of the building we go to, into the communities that we
Yeah.
experience. And I think you know how I feel about this stuff. I could go on and on about the power of singleness. And I read about in the
Hmm.
book, and I think one of the hard truths, and I have a friend who is 38. She's beautiful. She's a wonderful human who's single and just never met her guy. And she called me, this has been a year and a half ago, to kind of like vent about this guy that
Hmm.
she was seeing, and it wasn't going well. And she feels like nothing exists. And I said, okay, I was sitting there listening to her. I was like, what would I need to hear? Not want to hear, need to hear. So I told her, I was like, hey, I was never promised, you were never promised that you would find your partner. So what do you do with that? Like, that sucks. You want it, you desire
Yeah.
it, you should not stop pursuing it. It doesn't mean that you get apathetic in the pursuit of finding a person to share life with. That's not what I'm saying,
Hmm.
but it might not happen. And does that mean your life
Right.
was worthless? Goodness, no. You are still a
Hmm.
human who has breath, who has purpose, who has meaning, who can make a huge impact, whose time is valuable, whose influence is needed, whose love to others is accepted. And here's the cool part
Yeah.
about singleness: you have a lot more time. You just do. Like, doesn't mean that you fill your plate with all the business. I had a mentor of mine say, sometimes the most beautiful thing you can do in life is just sit and be available. And when you're single, you have that ability. And that's a gift that we should celebrate, that we should lift up, that we should lean into. I think the church, for whatever reason, they have put marriage on a pedestal, even though biblically it is celebrated, it is talked about, but it is not ever, in the words of Jesus, hey, to be a follower of me, pick up your cross, get married, have a lot of
Right.
babies. No, there's definitely words in there for the people who are married. There's also words in there for the
Yeah.
people who are single, that it is a
Yes.
great gift to serve God with the time and the influence and the space and the abilities that you have. I don't ever want that to sound where somebody hears that and goes, okay, well, this is just my calling. I'm going to be single. No, some people it is. Some people that I know are single and they don't really have a desire to meet somebody. They're
Yeah.
really fulfilled in the life that they have and in the time that they have and the influence they have. I know many people who are single in their 40s, as I get closer to 40, who still desire it. And I never want to hear like, hey, stop the pursuit. No, like
Right.
keep that going. But in the meantime, you're not a project in this process. You are not the easy answer for every single man at your church or at your,
Right.
organization. That you should be valued and respected in the person that you are, and hopefully one day your desire to find somebody comes to fruition. And it might not, and that is hard to hear, but it might
Hmm.
not. What I don't want is somebody to be living 60 years of their life being like, oh, because I didn't meet somebody, this whole thing was meaningless. In my eyes and the people I know, it's the complete opposite, that the influence that you can have and the worlds that you can make better and the people that you can show love to and point them towards God,
Hmm.
it doesn't change no matter if you're single or not.
Yeah. That's so good. All of that is so good because, yes, I desire it. That's something that I'm not giving up. It's not something that I'm just throwing the talent on. I am able to pursue more and do fun projects that like may not always get the opportunity to do that. I want to do more for the kingdom of God. I do feel like it's a gift. It's just, it gets heavy
A
sometimes.
100%.
I want to be able to have somebody to come home to
Mhm.
and be like, oh, this day was crazy. Can we order pizza?
Mhm. Well, and I want that for you. I think that's been the over-adjustment of people who, um, even care a little, would be they know you want this, and so they say, "Okay, when I speak with you, this is gonna be a topic that we talk about because I know it's a desire of your heart, and I wanna talk to people about the desires of their heart." It's overdone, and sometimes it comes off as disingenuous because they can't relate. I was given advice years ago that said, learn from people who have been there. So this Christian influencer who had been married for a long time and is buying cereal for her family, she hasn't been there. If I was her, would not have been speaking into that situation, especially from a place that's being it's so easy. Why not? Maybe she could have came at it with, like, hey, like, I can't relate to this, but I know you're still human. I know you still have value. I know you're still loved by God. But the people who've been through it, I would listen to because they can relate.
That's absolutely true. In your book, you write about one of the common themes that you've kind of weaved throughout is the idea that connection can happen through pain and brokenness, and that common ground can bring us together with connection with each other and also our relationship with God. And I feel like this ties back directly to something you talked about in your book that probably a lot of people don't know about you is the addiction to the painkillers
Mhm.
that you had and realizations that you had when it all finally came to make sense to you. Can you share a little bit about that period of your life and like how you overcame that
Mm.
and the freedom that you said you felt after that conversation with your friend?
Yeah, it's such a meaningful period of my life, and when I wrote it and people read it, a lot of people were like, they dismissed it because of when it happened, and they're like, everybody had an addiction in their 20s, and I'm like, well, it doesn't diminish the meaning of it or the power of
Yeah.
that addiction. I've lost friends from this world that were on that journey with me, in the
Mhm.
addiction, and they're no longer with us. And so, yes, it means a lot to me. And I wrote about it because I do think so many people deal with it, and I wanted to share why. And one of my close friends, he runs a recovery clinic. He was actually on the Bachelorette, Zach Clark, and he runs recovery clinics on the East Coast. And I was talking to him about, hey, like I still want to take a painkiller and like soak into my couch, man. And he's like, oh, an addict never doesn't desire the bottle. That's not the
Yeah.
battle here. The battle is you saying no to opening up that bottle. But the battle that you still have that desire and that memory of why you did it exists for so many. And so
Mhm.
kind of going back to the identity conversation, I'm taller. I'm 6'3". I grew up in Indiana, played sports my whole life, loved them, still loved them. My
Mhm.
wife and I drove past an adult flag football game yesterday. And I said, goodness, I wish I could be doing that. But unfortunately, I had a really bad knee injury in high school. I got hit and my knee spun around and tore all the ligaments. And so everything was done. I mean, at that point, I still tried to play sports, but it was never going to be the same. And this was my junior year, and I got prescribed painkillers right away because my knee was so messed up, but they couldn't do surgery because of the swelling. And so I had painkillers for probably 4 months before the surgery existed. And the surgery happened. I had painkillers for another month after that, or a couple weeks at least. By the time I was done with that, I was hooked. And then those went away, like the prescription went away. But I started to open, my eyes were open to a whole market where I could still find these things in different ways, stealing, sneaking into bathrooms of my friends' houses where I knew they had a recent surgery, doing things that are, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, like destructive and not going to lead anywhere good. But at the time, I was doing it because I was like, well, this is my answer. My identity as an athlete was ripped away. And I had to watch my friends compete in whatever sport was going on from the sidelines. And this was a numbing mechanism for me. And what I thought my life was going to look like had quickly changed in 1 second in one play in a small town in Indiana. And it never went away. So it went with me through high school. It was about 4 years of this, of me using it then as just a numbing mechanism. It was a way for me to forget. It was a way for me to not feel. It was a way for me to, at times, like find peace. But what it led to was some very poor decision making, as I mentioned. It was a lot of stealing. It was a lot of spending my money through different avenues, through risky avenues, and ultimately led to a moment where I had really hurt somebody from a class of mine. And then I dropped the class because I didn't want to confront them again. So this was in college. Dropping class is a big deal. I dropped the class
Yeah.
because I was a weak man and didn't want to confront it. Even if I would have confronted it, I don't know if anything would have changed. This person continued to pop up in my life again and again and again. And at some point, I had to confront it. And at some point, I had to hear the damage that I had caused. And that's when I looked at myself in the mirror. And the one thing about opioids is over time, you're numbing depression because the medicine is also making you depressed. Like if you're taking
Mhm.
painkillers every day, your mind is getting changed and your emotions are getting changed and you're getting depressed. And so you're taking them to cure a depression that they're also causing. I remember laying in my bed in college and going, God, if you're real, goodness, if you're real, I need you now more than ever. And I need you to show up. And a weight was lifted. I can't explain it. Again, I don't like speak about it often because it sounds like this, like, hey, Band-Aid, like fix, but
Mhm.
it was a, it was a moment that has changed my life forever because God showed up. Now I don't have this kind of
Yeah.
relationship where God is always showing up to my bedroom nowadays. Like sometimes it feels very distant, but in this moment,
Yeah.
God showed up and I looked at myself in the mirror and I looked at myself in the eyes and I said that you're not the man that you've ever dreamed of being. And you're not the man that you've ever dreamed of bringing to the world. And in that moment, I walked out of there. Everything was brighter. Relationships were more meaningful. Decision making was more intentional. My prayer life became more fervent. My scripture reading became almost obsessive, kind of weird. I think if somebody would have told me stand on the street corner and yell at people to turn or burn, I would have done it at that period of my life. My life was changed and I didn't know what to do with it. And it's the most beautiful moment of my life. It's also when I look back at times, I'm like, that was crazy. You went wild. You became a Jesus
Yeah.
freak. Um, and it's not really the people that I want to hang out with today too much. But yeah, I have that unique story that you hear every now and again where it was kind of a cold turkey prayer to God moment. The divine intervened and my life was forever changed.
Wow. Yeah. That story just hit me in the way that, you looked at yourself in the mirror in the eyes and said, like, this is not the man that I've always dreamed of being. And I mean, that's a hard thing when you have to literally face yourself.
Yeah, I don't recommend people looking themselves in the eyes in the mirror too often because when you like literally like do it, stare into your eyes, it can freak you out.
And then you said that you had met up with a friend at the coffee shop and talked to him after that
Mhm.
and walked through what you had been struggling with and dealing with. And you said when you walked away from that conversation, you felt a sense of freedom. You just felt free.
Yeah, I mean, I think in life it's been proven to me over and over again that the more I can open up to trusted sources, the better I feel coming out of it, or the more people can open up to me as a trusted source, the better I
Yeah.
feel coming out of it. And so at that moment, I mean, I kind of joked about it, but I really didn't know what to do with it. Like I could have become
Hmm.
really dangerously hurtful in my own fire because when the divine intervenes, it's hard to understand how to navigate it. And
Yeah.
it's hard to know what to do with this like overwhelming feeling of there is a God who loves. There is a God who's real. This God is active and moving and all around us. And I want everybody to know about it, not because I'm in this like, I want to convert the world, but I want them
Yeah.
to know about the love that is real, that exists, that is the truth to everything that we do, that this God
Yeah.
cares. But to communicate that in a healthy, helpful, constructive way so that people actually hear it, that people actually understand it, that people know that you're not just doing it to make everybody a little project, but to do it because you believe it's the truth or you've experienced the truth
Mhm.
are very different. And I think that's why we get the crazies, the radicals, because they never take a second to maybe speak with somebody else and be okay, what do I do with this now? How do I function in this world now? So, yeah, there was the freedom of just being able to open up to somebody and be like, hey, here's what's happening. Here's what I've been up to. We've known each other for a while. You might have not known this side of me. Now I've had this interaction. How do I turn? And there is this hard part, Heather, too, going back where a lot of my friends and still friends today, like good friends of mine, still people that I love, people that have grown and maybe made similar decisions that I made where it means putting stuff away. But
Mhm.
a lot of my friendships that were close knew this about me. And this is how we hung, we would
Yeah.
pop a pill and watch a movie. And so going to them even was like really scary to me and being like, hey, this isn't me
Yeah.
anymore. I've
Right.
changed. In like
Hmm.
a night, in a day, I've
Right.
changed.
Right.
That was hard to give that up, that identity up, and not fall back into the practices that were before.
Yeah. And isn't that so true though? There's guilt and shame. And guilt is like, I did something bad,
Mm,
right? And then shame is, I am
yeah.
bad. And the enemy wants us to live in that place of shame and oppression and to not come out and to talk about things and share things. And he wants to keep us down in that oppressed state of shame.
Mhm,
And so I'm sure on both sides, you were probably like, I feel shame for giving this up,
mhm.
right? And then like having to go and talk to the people that I had been doing this with. Like that feels weird on that side. And then this other side of like, what do I do with all of this that I want to tell people how much there's a God that actually loves them, but I don't want to come out sounding like a cray cray person,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah, I'm telling my friends, "Hey, I'm not gonna be taking the pills with you any longer, but I am gonna be telling you about Jesus every chance we get." And they're like, "Yeah, I don't know about this. Like, this doesn't sound like a fun
yeah,
hang."
yeah. I'm not sure I want to do
Yeah.
that. I want you to tell us about your newest venture with the Can You Hear Me
Uh-huh.
podcast. And so share a little bit about that. And then I want to talk to you about the For Purpose company.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Can You Hear Me is really coming from that place where I cried out to God and said, God, are you real? Are you there? Are you listening? And it's a prayer I still have today, but it's mostly for the chaos that exists around us. There's many of days where I spend going, God, like, what is going on? And I'm sometimes just as confused with Christian influencers and the church as I am with the political dialogue or the neighborhood HOA dialogue. Like, how are we doing this? What is happening? Where are you at in this? Um, and so this project was started as a faith-based initiative to just have conversations. There is no agenda to what I'm trying to do. It is, I'd say, the only agenda that I have for myself as a host of it would be to learn more about what God is doing in this world, even though some people that I've
Hmm.
had on would attribute it to God. They'd attribute it to
Hmm.
luck or circumstance or the universe or whatever they want to call it. But I believe that all good things come from the God above. And I, as somebody that believes in Jesus, and I'm hoping the listeners will also attribute these beautiful stories to God above, even if the people that are speaking about it might not. And there's a
Yeah.
complexity in that, and there's a difficulty in that. And I think there's a lot of uncomfortability in that for the church today because we want to keep our box very clean. We want to put up walls and we want to make sure that everything we say is in line with what we know to be true about our faith, and more interested and seeing how God is working all around us in the messy places, outside of the boxes, outside of the normal rhythms. And because I believe that truth exists, and I believe that truth exists in Jesus, and I believe Jesus is moving and active. And if he is moving and active, and if there's a spirit that exists in this world, we can contribute all the good things in this world to that God. And so
Yeah.
for me, it's those conversations of what's happening, what's going on, what are you dealing with? We have people that are well known to not well known coming on, sharing their stories. Theo is a great example, somebody who is going through it, and it'd be fun to meet
Yeah.
him when he's going through it to say, "Hey, I'm not here to preach to you. I'm not here to give you the answers. I'm not here to tell you what's right and wrong. I'm here to hear your story right now, like right where you're at."
Yeah.
Because I believe there's a God that is working in every human. I'm going through Romans right now, and Paul speaks a lot to this, that God is working in us, and in us means all. Paul speaks to the the original sin, and Jesus is attributed to Adam, right? And that sin, then we believe, walked through this world, like wiped over all of us, right? We all have this sin complex that we're dealing with, and that Jesus and his sacrifice saved us from that. And so if sin entered the world and all of us, then Jesus is available to all of us. And the sacrifice that Jesus made is available to all of us. And I think that's a beautiful way to maybe take a deep breath and say, there's a piece to this. I don't have to be so concerned with somebody saying the right or wrong thing. I just want to be concerned with listening to their story and believing and praying that God is doing a work in all of us, myself included. So that's that project. Generous Coffee is a project I started after I was the bachelor because my buddy told me, "Hey, you were never meant to be famous, and what are you going to do with this platform that God has given you?" And for most of my life, I've been involved in work that's helping fight injustices that exist around the world. This goes back to like middle school. It was kind of like a missions trip. And it's always been a passion of mine to do sustainable development and sustainable change in communities that need it, and do it because I believe it is of God and it's a calling that God has placed on my life and some of my friends' lives around me. And so one of the problems we had, especially at that season of life, I was the bachelor at a young age. I think I was 26. None of my friends had any money. And so we were fundraising with all of our friend group who didn't have money. And it was impossible to do anything meaningful with the $100 that we were getting per quarter for the nonprofit. And so I started Generous Coffee with this idea that we could start a for-profit business. You said it correctly. Oh, thank you for doing that. It's a for-purpose business is what we call it. because any owner in the business, myself included, will never make money on it. I don't take a salary. I don't make a dime. I never will. Any owner in the business never will. We have other owners who have invested into it. And the idea is that we can sell coffee online at generouscoffee.com, both wholesale and retail. We have a roastery in Warsaw, Indiana, and
Wow.
we donate 100% of our profits to nonprofits. And so the idea is this
Wow.
company would grow, would build on itself, would hopefully one day sell for hundreds of millions of dollars, and all that money would be donated to organizations around the globe that are fighting human-facing injustice.
Wow.
We're 8 years
Wow.
in,
That's
$350,000
incredible.
donated, and a lot of debt. It's been good.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, I've never heard it put for purpose. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love that this is a sacrifice that the founders are making and putting into it and not taking a salary and doing this for a greater good. And I love that.
Yeah. It's been
That's
awesome.
amazing.
It's been awesome.
Yeah. So the last thing that I want to ask about is something I ask all of my guests. So it is, what is something that God is teaching you right now that you didn't expect to be learning at this stage of your life?
God, I for years of my life had pushed away the Bible. It was confusing to me. I wasn't making sense of it. I felt like I was reading it. And then I went to Israel on a trip and left there even more confused, because I was like, okay, so many of the stories and the things I've read in scripture don't align with the geography or the findings that are existing in Israel. So I kind of pushed this aside. And right now in this season, over and over again, I feel like I've just been reminded and had this desire to dig back into scripture, but do it in a different way, do it in a way that isn't just reading it at face level, but digging into it, like actually taking time on it, studying it, and it's helping me make more sense of it. It's taken a little bit of the magic away from it, to be honest, but what it's doing is it's giving me context. It's giving me historical references. And so it's making me appreciate it a lot more. Some of the stuff I was confused by was just my own misunderstandings of it, my reading in it. And so God is teaching me that there's a great gift that's available to me that I can dig into and learn from and hear from. And so that's right now. That's new for me. That was it's weird for me even to say that, because for years I was like, I just don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was the same. When I wrote my book, I was digging in and looking in the context and really figuring it out, going back to the original language. What does this mean? Doing word studies, all of that. And it's been so eye-opening to look at things that way.
Yeah.
And I love it. I could study one verse for just hours.
Yeah.
Like if you really dig into something that deeply, you can study one verse for hours.
100%. It's been good. Again, it's taken a little bit of the magic or the majesty out of it, because sometimes you'd read it and just be like, well, that's so wonderful. Would kind of be the easy response. And then as you thought about it, you'd be like, but that seems confusing to me. And now it's a little bit more of the study of it that is, I'd say, a little more academic, that is helping bring a whole new beautiful lesson to me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. Thanks for sharing.
Of course.
Well, Ben, thank you so much for coming on and talking with me. This has been so good, and loved hearing more about you and just what your heart's about and what you've learned from in life and your family. So thank you for coming on and just sharing that with us.
Heather, thanks for having me. I wish you the best, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I'm really thankful for Ben taking the time to talk with me and his willingness to be vulnerable as he shared his stories. Our conversation reminded me that our brokenness is the perfect place for God's love to transform us. Our pain and our brokenness can actually provide us with a deep compassion for others, and also provide a way to connect with people in ways that others that haven't been through a similar experience can't. It was encouraging to hear Ben talk about his moments of self-awareness, about ways that he lived recklessly. Not everyone has the willingness to self-reflect and take accountability for the things that they have consciously or subconsciously done to hurt others that never hurt them. There were lots of good nuggets in this episode. I think I might just have to go listen again. I will have something great to share on next week's episode of Just Between Us. In the show notes, you'll find the information to stay connected with Ben, as well as the link to order his book, Alone in Plain Sight. You'll also find the link to his podcast, Can You Hear Me? And the link to Generous Coffee Company if you want to support a for-purpose company. Did you know that I'm also an author? I wrote a 90-day devotional titled Healing on the Horizon. I've included a link in the show notes where you can purchase a copy of my book. Maybe you or someone you know needs this exact resource right now. If today's episode helped you in any way, will you share it with a friend or leave a review? Be sure that you follow or subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss what's coming next. All of these actions really help podcasts like mine get out into the world and reach more listeners. Thanks again for listening and for showing up to hear these conversations that I get to have with all of my amazing guests. Until next time, keep living between the now and the next.